Imagine walking home in the pouring rain. Cold, tired, with nothing but a flimsy umbrella to shield you. Now imagine seeing someone else, soaked to the bone, with nothing at all. Would you give away the only thing you had to stay dry? One little girl did, and that single, selfless choice sparked a chain of miracles that would change her life forever. This isn't just a story about an umbrella. It's a story about hope, kindness, and the unbelievable power of one small act. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see the world. In a quiet corner of Nashville, Tennessee, nestled between rusted fences and a faded gas station, lived 11-year-old Emily Parker. Life in the trailer park wasn't easy. The roof leaked when it rained, and dinner was often whatever her single mom could scrape together. But if you asked anyone at Maplewood Elementary about Emily, they'd tell you she was the kind of kid who lit up a room with just a smile. She wasn't rich, not by a long shot. But Emily had something more valuable: a heart that refused to ignore the pain of others. Every afternoon, she walked home alone, tracing the same cracked sidewalk for nearly half an hour. And nearly every day, she stopped by the gas station to hand part of her lunch to a man most people pretended didn't exist, a quiet homeless veteran named Red, who sat by the ice machine, whispering to the wind. Emily never thought much of it. To her, it was simple: if you had something, you shared it. And on one particular rainy afternoon, she'd do something so small, so ordinary, that it would ripple through time and change everything. It was a Friday afternoon, and the skies over Nashville had turned an unforgiving shade of gray. Thunder grumbled low in the distance as rain began to fall, soft at first, then hard enough to blur the streets and soak through shoes. Most of the kids at Maplewood Elementary had parents waiting in pickup lines. But as usual, Emily zipped up her too thin jacket and started her walk home, gripping her tiny pink umbrella against the wind. As she turned the corner past the gas station, something unusual caught her eye. Sitting alone on a bench just outside the bus stop shelter was an old man. Not Red, not someone she recognized, but another man, older, frail-looking, with silver hair plastered to his head and a threadbare coat that offered no protection from the storm. He didn't move, didn't look up. Just stared at the ground as the rain dripped steadily from his chin. Emily hesitated. She could have kept walking. Most kids her age would have. But something tugged at her, that same gentle pull she felt every time she saw someone in need. She stepped closer, her shoes splashing through puddles, and lifted the umbrella over his head. "You're getting soaked, sir," she said softly. "You can walk with me if you want." The man looked up slowly, his eyes widening in surprise. There was a flicker of something there: disbelief, maybe, or gratitude. He nodded wordlessly and stood with a stiffness that suggested he hadn't moved in a while. Together, they began walking slowly, silently down the sidewalk. Emily didn't ask why he was there or where he was going. Instead, she talked about her favorite book, how she hated math, and how her mom made the best grilled cheese when they had bread and cheese at the same time. The man chuckled under his breath a few times, the kind of laugh that sounded like it hadn't been used in a long while. When they reached the block where Emily lived, she paused. Her home was just down the street. "This is me," she said, handing him the pink umbrella without hesitation. "You should keep it, just in case it rains again tomorrow." The man stared at the umbrella for a moment, then at the girl. Before he could say a word, Emily gave a little wave and dashed toward her trailer, her jacket darkened by the rain. He watched her disappear through the door, the umbrella now his, not just a shield from the storm, but something else. Something that warmed him from the inside. For a moment, he stood there, blinking against the rain. Then, slowly, the old man smiled. The next morning, the sun returned as if the storm had never happened. Emily stepped outside with her usual quiet smile, a plastic grocery bag tied loosely over her head in place of her missing umbrella. Her shoes squelched through yesterday's puddles as she walked to school. She didn't mention the umbrella to her mom. In fact, she didn't think it was anything worth mentioning. It was just something she did, like handing out half a sandwich or stopping to pet the stray cat near the dumpsters. But deep down, something about the encounter lingered. The man's silence, his sad eyes, that faint smile as she walked away. It stayed with her. The week drifted by. Monday came. Then Tuesday. No sign of the man at the bus stop. Emily checked every day. Nothing. It was as if he'd vanished with the rain. Then, as if life had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, Emily's world changed again. One Thursday evening, her mom sat at the kitchen table, silent and pale, a pink slip from work clutched in her hand. She'd been laid off from the diner. Rent was due. Groceries were low. The power bill was already a week late. Emily didn't ask questions. She just quietly helped pack their things. They had no choice but to move in with her aunt, who lived in a different part of the city, far from Maplewood, far from the gas station, far from everything she knew, and far from the man in the rain. As they loaded their few belongings into cardboard boxes, Emily found herself glancing out the window more than usual, half hoping to see a familiar figure with a pink umbrella walking down the street. But no one came. To her, it had been just a brief moment, a fleeting act of kindness. She figured the man was just another drifter, maybe someone passing through. Maybe he'd forgotten her already. What she didn't know was that he remembered everything. Every word. Every step. Every second under that tiny pink umbrella. Somewhere, in a quiet part of the city, a wealthy man who had once believed in nothing but numbers and ledgers was sitting at a desk, replaying a moment he couldn't shake. He wasn't just an old man on a bench. His name was Harold Whitman, a retired financial executive who had built empires but lost touch with people. And somehow, one child's selfless gesture in a rainstorm had cracked something wide open in his heart. Emily gave away an umbrella. Harold received something far more valuable. And soon, he would return the gift. Days passed. Then weeks. Emily settled into the back bedroom of her aunt's cramped townhouse, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, her few toys stacked in a milk crate beside her. She didn't complain, she never did. Her mom was doing her best, applying for jobs, stretching every dollar. They both kept going. But in the quiet moments, when the world slowed, Emily would think about that rainy walkabout, the umbrella, and the man with the eyes that looked tired but kind. She wondered if he was okay. She wondered if he remembered. What she didn't know was that he did. Every single day. Harold Whitman had built his fortune crunching numbers, stocks, properties, investments. People came to him for advice on how to make more, spend less, maximize returns. But in the years since retiring, his days had grown painfully quiet. His wife had passed. His children lived far away and rarely called. The mansion felt like a museum of someone else's life. Cold. Immaculate. Lifeless. He'd taken to walking alone through different neighborhoods, seeking something. He didn't even know what. Until the storm. Until her. That little girl, soaked, smiling, kind, had offered him the only umbrella she had, without hesitation. Without asking who he was. Without expecting anything in return. That moment haunted him in the best way. He replayed it in his mind over and over: her voice, the way she talked about grilled cheese, the way she waved goodbye as if she had just handed over a treasure and didn't he think twice about it. It moved something in him he thought was long dead. That same night, Harold opened a dusty leather journal his wife once gave him, the one she hoped he'd use to write something real someday. And for the first time, he did. He wrote Emily's name. Then he began searching. It took some digging. She hadn't given her last name, but he remembered her school's name stitched onto her backpack. He had connections, people who could find things quietly. Within days, he had her full name, her mother's name, and an address. But when he got there, the trailer was empty. The mailbox full. Gone. Still, Harold didn't stop. He made calls. Quietly. Respectfully. Until finally, one evening, his assistant Liam returned with an update: "We found them." Harold didn't say much. Just nodded and said, "It's time." For the first time in years, he felt like he had purpose again. Not tied to business or money, but to something real. Something pure. He pulled out a pen and began writing a letter. Not a business deal. Not a contract. Just a letter from one heart to another. He was about to return what Emily had given him, not an umbrella, but hope. It was a gray Saturday morning when someone knocked on the door of Emily's aunt's townhouse. Her mom, still in her work clothes from a night shift at the grocery store, opened it cautiously. Standing there was a sharply dressed man in his early 30s, holding a leather briefcase and a calm, respectful smile. "Hi, ma'am," he said. "My name's Liam. I work for Mr. Harold Whitman. He asked me to deliver something personally to your daughter, Emily." Emily peeked from behind her mom, curiosity lighting up her face. Liam knelt down, opened his briefcase, and handed her a carefully folded letter sealed with wax. Her name was handwritten across the front. Inside, the paper trembled slightly in her small hands as she read, "Dear Emily, you may not remember me, but I will never forget you. That rainy day, you gave away something you needed, not because you had extra, but because you saw someone who needed it more. That moment changed my life. You reminded me what it meant to feel seen. To feel human again. You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything. And now, I want to do the same for you. Please accept this scholarship to the Everdale Academy, a place where your kindness, your light, will be nurtured and celebrated. I've also offered your mother a position at the foundation I started, where we work every day to help others the way you helped me. Consider this, just one umbrella, returned with interest." H.W. Emily looked up, eyes wide. Her mom's hand covered her mouth, stunned silent. For a few seconds, no one spoke, the weight of the moment pressing against the still air. Liam gently added, "The driver's waiting. If you're ready, we can take you to visit the school and the foundation today." Emily turned to her mom, silently asking with her eyes. Her mom nodded slowly, tears already falling. And just like that, their world shifted. That afternoon, they toured the Everdale Academy, a beautiful, ivy-covered campus filled with warm-hearted teachers and students who welcomed Emily like family. She never had her own locker before. Now she had books, supplies, even her own laptop. Meanwhile, her mother walked into a sunlit office downtown, where the walls were lined with photos of community projects and handwritten thank you notes. The job wasn't just a paycheck, it was purpose. Weeks later, Emily began classes. Her teachers quickly saw what Harold had seen: a spark, a heart, a quiet strength. She thrived. And every year after that, on the anniversary of the rainy day, Emily and her mom would donate a brand new umbrella to the Whitman Foundation, with a handwritten tag that read, "For the next storm, and the next heart that needs shelter." The seasons passed, one by one. With each year at Everdale Academy, Emily Parker bloomed not just in academics, but in confidence, in vision, in voice. She joined the student council. She volunteered at the school food drive. And every Thursday afternoon, she helped tutor younger students who struggled with reading, remembering what it felt like to feel small in a world too big. The shy girl who once walked home alone in the rain was becoming someone new, someone strong, someone radiant. But she never forgot who she was, or where she came from. At night, when her homework was done and her mom had finished her reports for the foundation, they'd sit on their small couch together, sometimes silent, sometimes sharing stories about the old days. Not the ones filled with struggle, but the ones filled with small, unshakable acts of love, like grilled cheese sandwiches on rainy nights, or a pink umbrella passed between strangers. Emily began writing, too. At first, just in a spiral notebook: thoughts, feelings, poems. Then came essays, then speeches. One day, her teacher pulled her aside after class. "Emily, have you ever thought about speaking publicly? Your writing has a voice that needs to be heard." At first, she hesitated. Public speaking wasn't easy for someone who used to hide behind donated winter coats. But something inside her, something braver now, said yes. Her first speech was at a foundation event attended by donors, community leaders, and Harold Whitman himself. She wore a borrowed dress and trembling hands, but when she stepped up to the microphone, the room hushed. She looked out across the faces, found her mother's eyes, and began. "When I was 11, I gave my only umbrella to a man I didn't know. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't know it would lead me here." The room sat still, riveted, as she shared her story, not just the facts, but the feelings, the fear, the generosity, the turning point. She ended with this: "We don't always get to see the ripple effects of our kindness. But I'm standing here to tell you they're real. You never know whose life you might change, even with something as small as an umbrella." The applause came like a wave. Harold stood, clapping through misty eyes. Her mother wiped away proud tears. From that day forward, Emily became a regular speaker at events, schools, even youth leadership conferences. Not because she wanted recognition, but because she had lived proof that small acts, done with great love, could change the trajectory of a life. And she wanted every child, every adult to believe in that same kind of magic. Because Emily was no longer the girl just walking home through the storm. She was the one lighting the way. The sky over Everdale Academy was overcast, a soft, silver kind of cloudy. It was the first Friday of October, and the campus buzzed with energy. Students in bright jackets lined the courtyard, teachers prepared for the annual fall festival, and the familiar scent of cinnamon and rain filled the air. At the center of it all stood Emily Parker, now 17. She stood behind a wooden podium on the main stage, no longer the unsure little girl in hand-me-down clothes, but a poised, eloquent young woman. Her voice had matured, but it still carried the same warmth, the same sincerity that once stopped an old man in the rain. The school's alumni, donors, students, and staff had all gathered for the celebration. But Emily wasn't just there to speak, she was there to honor something deeper. She looked down at her notes, then back up at the crowd, her eyes scanning familiar faces: her mother, now director of programs at the Whitman Foundation. Mr. Whitman, older but smiling, seated near the front with his hands folded and eyes misty. She took a breath and began. 6 years ago, I gave away my only umbrella to a man sitting alone in the rain. I didn't think twice about it. I just thought, if it were me, I'd want someone to do the same. What I didn't know then, is that kindness circles back. It grows. It builds bridges between strangers. It saves lives. The courtyard was silent. Even the wind had paused to listen. That man didn't just remember me, he gave me a future. He gave me a school, a purpose, and the belief that I mattered. And today, I want to pass that forward. Emily held up a small pink umbrella, brand new, with a gold tag attached. A wave of recognition swept through the crowd. Every year since that day, my mom and I have donated an umbrella to the Whitman Foundation for a child who might need shelter from more than just the rain. This year, I'm donating 100. The crowd broke into spontaneous applause, but she wasn't finished. Because kindness is more than a feeling. It's a chain reaction. It's the quiet revolution this world needs most. Behind her, dozens of umbrellas began to rise into the air, gently held by students, staff, and families. All colors, all sizes, all pointing skyward like hopeful little flags. The wind picked up and the umbrellas swayed, a sea of color against the gray sky. It was a symbol of where she came from, of how far she had come, and of the storms we all walk through and the people who help us along the way. Emily stepped back from the podium, tears in her eyes but a smile on her face. Because in the crowd, she saw it, not just gratitude, but a spark. And she knew the chain had only just begun. In a world that often feels too fast, too loud, and too divided, it's easy to believe that small acts don't matter. But Emily Parker's story reminds us that the tiniest act of kindness, even something as simple as sharing an umbrella, can echo louder and longer than we ever imagine. Kindness doesn't require wealth, status, or grand gestures. It only requires heart. A willingness to see another person and say, I will not ignore your need. When Emily handed over her umbrella without expecting anything in return, she planted a seed. And that seed grew into opportunities, communities, and hope, not just for herself, but for many others. The life lesson is simple but profound: the smallest kindness can create the biggest change. We might never see the full ripple effect of our good deeds, but that doesn't make them any less powerful. In fact, it makes them even more beautiful. Every choice to care, to share, to lift someone else up even for a moment can change the course of a life. Maybe even your own. Next time you see a small opportunity to help, take it. Smile at a stranger. Hold open a door. Offer your umbrella in a sudden downpour. It's easy to underestimate these moments. Easy to believe they're too small to matter. But the truth is, someone might be clinging to their last bit of hope, and your kindness could be the hand that pulls them back from the edge. Organizations like the Whitman Foundation or real-life equivalents like local shelters, mentorship programs, and youth charities rely on these simple acts of humanity to fuel bigger changes. You don't have to start a movement. You just have to start with one moment. Because just like Emily's story shows, you never know whose life you might change, with something as simple as an umbrella. What if one small act of kindness could change someone's entire life? If this story touched your heart, help us spread the message. Hit subscribe for more real-life inspirations. Share this video with someone who could use a little hope today. And tell us in the comments what's one small act of kindness that changed your life. Let us keep the chain of kindness going together.